Hi everyone, I'm Steve Bernard and I'm here to give you a quick overview of some of the new features inside of Flash Professional CC. So to begin with, I'm going to have to go through some slides because a lot of the new features are things that are embedded inside the application. So things I'll have to talk about first of all as opposed to show you, but I'll be showing you some of the new features as well. So first of all, I just want to give you some of my top 5 reasons why you should maybe consider upgrading to Flash Professional. Number 1, which took a bit of time to get here, but we got there in the end, is a rebuild to 64-bit architecture for modern OSs. And this has given us a great speed improvement, especially when using things like dragging across the timeline and going through your library of assets, etc. We've also done a lot of work on changing the user interface, and we now support the Retina displays and the higher resolution displays, which is really good from a usability point of view. We have a new code editor inbuilt as well, so for designers and developers doing any code work inside of ActionScript, we've actually rebuilt a code editor inside of Flash, and that's now got some great features inside as well. One of the things that I really want to show off is the Convert Flash to HD video. This is an amazing feature because it enables you to use Flash in different areas like compositing video for broadcast and creating animations that are going to go onto podcasts and out to webs, etc., web file formats. So the HD video support inside of Flash has been greatly improved, and we've rewritten that to be a lot better. And also, funnily enough, HTML5 export. Because of the nature of Flash and what it was used for historically, a lot of things like banner ads inside of websites, etc. A lot of sites are converting now to HTML5, but the assets are still stored inside of Flash files. So of course, a great workflow will be to export as HTML5. And we've had this in CS6, but we've now improved upon it in CC, and I'll show you some of that in action as well. Okay, some of the performance improvements. I just want to go through one or two of these. First of all, rewritten as 64-bit has given us a greater startup time and also opening up files, saving files, etc. So a great overall improvement to anything you do inside of Flash Pro CC. Okay, we also done some work with the user interface. We now support Retina display, so for the higher DPIs. We've also done a lot of cleanup as well. So we've changed a lot of the preferences panel, for example. We've cleaned that up. We've moved some panels around and combined a few panels just to make it a lot easier to get in and out of using the user interface. So quite a bit of work there as well. For any developers out there, we've also improved, we've got some new JavaScript APIs to actually control some of the visual elements. If you write in plugins, you want those plugins to be consistent with the application, you can do that as well. Okay, so this is an example of cleaning up the interface. So I've taken a few screenshots here of the old preferences for CS6 and the new preferences for Flash CC, and as you can see, we've actually gotten rid of a lot, just to make it a lot cleaner and easier to use. Okay, we've also moved around a couple of the panels and consolidated a few of the panels as well. So adding items like filters and getting into the accessibility panel, having it underneath the properties panel makes a lot of sense. So it just makes your overall working life inside of Flash Pro a lot easier. Okay, a few enhancements for designers. Publishing as HTML5 has got to be the #1 feature, and we're making continuous improvements on that as well, and I want to show you that in action. Using the drawing tools, we've got a lot of live previews now working very, very quickly, so you can just use your pen tool and get up and running very quickly. And also doing things like if you wanted to maybe output as different document sizes, you can scale to match size. You can scale the content to match the size with a lot more options of doing that now. Okay, so for animators, one of the great things about Flash was that the timeline and using the easing controls on the timeline, and now we can export out as video, and we've actually rewritten a few libraries. Before we was using some third-party libraries, now we've rewritten them ourselves, and we've got greater control in exporting video. The timeline is something that's used quite a lot inside of Flash, and you can probably imagine just getting in and out of the timeline, selecting assets on the timeline, selecting multiple assets, applying properties to multiple assets, things that was a bit shaky in CS6, but we've improved upon this in CC as well. So big customer feedback was applying properties to multiple assets on the timeline. So we've done a lot of work there as well, make your life a lot easier. For developers, anyone doing any code work, we've improved the ActionScript editor inside of Flash, and we've got a really good find and replace panel as well. So you can find and replace text across a document, across all open documents, and it's not just text as well. You can do a find and replace on things like symbols, etc. So a really powerful find and replace panel, and I'm going to show you that in action as well. Okay, as I've already mentioned, we've got a new code editor inside of Flash. This has actually been built using an open source library, and we contributed back the 64-bit port of this library as well into the Scintilla organisation. And with a few extra tools that will help us when working with mobile devices as well. So for example, you can attach via USB an Android device and debug directly onto your device, and also you can actually have integration with the iOS simulator as well. If you've got Xcode and you've got the iOS simulator as part of Xcode, you can actually integrate Flash with iOS simulator to launch applications on the iOS simulator. Okay, so let's go in and show you one or two of these things in action. Let's just go to Flash. Okay, let's open up a couple of files here. Okay, so just a few things to show. First of all, let's have a quick tour around the interface. If I go to Preferences, you can see that within the preferences we've done a lot of cleanup to make life easier in terms of going through your preferences. Another thing that's very useful is sync settings. What you can do is you can actually save some settings and synchronize them to your cloud account. Why would you want to do that? Well, as part of Creative Cloud, you get access to installing Flash Pro on 2 machines. And this is quite important, especially as we're working in a world now where laptops have become much cheaper than what they were a few years ago. So buying a second machine, having one at home or having one at work, for example, is very much a reality, and having 2 machines activated, a great workflow. So synchronizing settings so you can have those settings come into your second machine is just a natural thing to do. And we can do that directly inside of Flash Professional. Okay, so sync settings is very useful, and you can see the options that we have of what we can synchronize there. Okay, let's show you a couple of new things around the interface. First of all, if I select anything in my library, as I just scroll down, just using the down arrow key, you can see we can scroll through the library very quickly. So great performance improvements, just even scrubbing through the library. It's much quicker now. Okay, let's have a look at the this particular piece of work. If I just zoom out a tad, in fact this is a game, would you believe, so I'm just going to go into a different part of this game. Because I want to show you a feature that was requested. Flash is being used a lot to create games that are going to be used online. You can get console quality, speed and performance using Flash. You know, we're talking, you know, up to 60 frames per second, etc. And typically when creating games, you might have a landscape that you're working on, or some sort of a world that you're working on. The downside is, of course, the bigger your landscape, the larger area you need to work with. So what we've done is we've given you a pasteboard, which is essentially unlimited in size. So you can have a pasteboard as big as you want to work on. Okay, so unlimited pasteboard is a nice little inclusion there. Let's just go in at 100%. And you can center on stage as well. If you want to just center on stage, you've got a center on stage button. Another nice little workflow is if I go to View, let's go to View in full screen mode. I'm going to do this full screen mode. Now the idea behind this is we have access to Flash from a visual point of view. If you're a visual designer, you can see a lot more on screen, and if you want to get access to your panels, they can just pop out at any time. Okay, so just mousing over right and left, our panels will pop out. At the top of the screen, you can mouse over and bring in your timeline as well. So full screen mode just makes life, working life very easy inside of Flash. Okay, let's just open up a few more files. Okay, let's just go to our video file. Okay, so a really powerful feature inside of Flash Professional is the ability to export as HD video. So as I just mouse along on the timeline, just scrubbing along the timeline is a lot smoother now, as you can see here. Okay, so one of the features that we have is if we go to export video, what will happen in the background is we've rewritten the libraries to create this video. So now we can do things like include audio, any nested movie clips, any animations that's created via ActionScript. They will all be supported when we export video. Okay, let's just give an example. I'm just going to do, just for the sake of a demo, I'm just going to make 5 seconds worth of video. And let's just put this on the desktop. Okay, so we're going to go out at the original resolution. The stage was set to 1920 by 1080, and let's just hit export. I'm just going to put out 5 seconds just for the sake of a demo, but you get the idea. So what's going to happen here is Flash is going to render out the SWF file, and then it's going to convert the SWF file into a .mov file, and it will be an uncompressed .mov file. The reason why we do that is when we have an uncompressed file, we can pass that into the Adobe Media Encoder, which enables us to then re-encode as whatever format we want, and it's going to launch Media Encoder directly for me. Okay, so let's just put in a couple of settings. I'm going to choose H.264. Let's make this 25 frames a second. Just grab that on and let's just click on OK. So in the background, hopefully you can see on my desktop, we've got the original .mov file, and I've got a couple of presets already set up. Let's just click on OK, and now they're going to be output directly to desktop. Now what's interesting here is that the Media Encoder has also been written to be 64-bit. So performance of the Media Encoder is quite phenomenal, multi-threaded, etc. Very powerful. Okay, it's going to take a few seconds for this to complete, and then we'll get an example of what it's actually done. Okay, it's worth mentioning while this is just finishing off, the Media Encoder, you can also have watched folders as well. So if you're grabbing video files from different places, you can have a watch folder, dump them in, and have a consistency of output then. Okay, done. And there we are, there's our video file, 5 seconds worth, 1080p in terms of size, MP4 file. Okay, another nice little feature, if I go back to that interface just once more, just very quickly I'll explain what's going to happen here. If I go back to export video, another thing that we can do here is ignore stage color. And what this will do, this will generate an alpha channel. Now this could be pretty useful if you wanted to maybe composite some animation on top of video using After Effects or Premiere, etc. So a nice little workflow there. So how we could achieve that, for example, and this is a way of showing you some of the new the new properties we can apply inside of the timeline is, let's just take, for example, a few of these layers, just to show you that we can work on multiple layers at the same time. Let's just turn them into a guide layer. It's worth saying that guide layers don't get exported out when they're video, so that's a nice little shortcut there. Okay, select multiple layers. If I go to properties, you can see you can apply multiple properties very, very quickly in terms of selecting multiple layer objects and then layer properties all applied at the same time. That's just a quick way of showing you there. Now, instead of exporting again, I just want to show you what this looks like once it has been exported. Here's a quick example. I'm just going to show you this inside of Bridge. Okay, let's just turn the audio down there. There you can see the animation playing, but the alpha channel has now kicked in, so this would be great to composite using After Effects or Premiere. Okay, right then, let's get back into Flash for 1 second. Okay, let's talk a bit about the exporting to HTML5. I'm just going to open up a typical banner ad. So something that's been created and typically would have been exported out as a Flash file. Now this is a really, really good workflow because you could have an archive of material already inside of Flash Professional and you might want to rebuild this out for HTML5. Well, instead of rebuilding in another application, you can do it all directly inside of Flash Professional. And we now support a few extra features such as using buttons, for example, for on-click events. So this is a Flash file that's going to be created to HTML5. Now to do that, we just need to say, let's use our toolkit for Create.js. And this is where, if I just quickly show you some of the settings, you get an idea of what can be exported out. So for example, audio files, sound files here. Do we want to export out sound files, images, libraries, etc.? Let's just put this onto the desktop, make life easy. And let's just publish. Okay, so that's now playing as a native HTML5 component. And we've got an on-click event there that is actually a JavaScript on-click event, but it was written in JavaScript, but it was written inside of Flash, and I'll show you how that can be done. So let's just show you a couple of extra features here. I'm just going to go into the timeline for 1 second. Okay, and just show you a couple of new features that have been introduced as part of Flash CC. Just zoom in a second. Okay. So one of the features that Toolkit for Create.js now supports is support for using guides. So creating a Bezier curve as a guide, that's now supported on export. So let me give you an example of that. I'm going to select this Bezier curve. If I just zoom in, you can probably see a couple of nice new features here. I'm going to adjust the angle of the jumper. If I just zoom in, you can probably see a nice new feature here is the ability to use Bezier curves for that guide. So that makes life a lot easier for a designer. So what I could do here, for example, is maybe just take this guide and maybe make it jump a little bit higher over the rocks. So that's a typical thing you might want to do. Another nice little feature is if I go and show you, let's just, oops, I've gone straight past it. Okay, here we've got a button. Now this button, we can have up, over and down states, and these are all exported out, out to HTML5. But what's also worth mentioning is if I just go to the Actions editor for 1 second, if we look at the code behind this button, what has been commented is a little bit of JavaScript. And there's your JavaScript for saying on-click event, go to adobe.com. Now on publish out to HTML5, the action script is ignored and the JavaScript kicks in. So it's a nice little way of having both sets of script available to you inside of Flash Professional. What's also worth mentioning here while I'm here is in the code editor is we've got a couple of new features. One of them is the find and replace. So it's at the top of the action script dialog, the action script code editor, so it's a logical place to have it. So we can do find and replace here. We can also find and replace across multiple documents as well. Let me just show you some of the power that we have behind this find and replace. It's not just text, it's worth mentioning. We can also find things like colours and swap colours, symbols, bitmap objects, etc. So find and replace is not just for code, but if you are using it for code, where do you want to find and replace to and from? All open documents, all within a scene, etc. So a very powerful find and replace engine. Okay, I'll just show you a few more drawing tools. Okay, so just a couple of improvements really for designers who've brought in maybe some vector assets from Illustrator or something like that, and you need to carry on working with them. We've got a very, very good vector engine inside of Flash, and the performance has been increased quite considerably. A couple of things that we can do here, which is worth mentioning. If I wanted to maybe, let's take the colour for example, if I wanted to have a live feedback. If I wanted to change the fill colour, we can actually just get a live feedback without actually selecting the object. That's very powerful there. What else can we do here? We can also, if I just go in and I'm going to select the object, I'm going to convert that to a symbol, and let's just resize that very quickly. I'll just create two of them side by side. If I was going to create a couple of outputs, maybe some Flash files at different sizes for different types of banner ads, or maybe HTML5 going out at different banner ad sizes, what I could do here is I could adjust my stage size. And if I adjusted my stage size, for example, let's just make this bigger. If I was changing the aspect ratio, once you adjust your stage size, you can actually say, right, anchor all the objects on the stage to a certain point. So this is actually really good if you wanted to maybe make content that's going to be different aspect ratios, and you've always got a good way of centering content on the stage, for example. Okay, that's a quite a nice little feature to have. Okay, moving swiftly on, just a couple of extra features. First of all, if I go to import to library, we've got support for a few extra file formats. I just want to point out we've got support for OGG Vorbis as an audio file, and FLAC files, the free lossless codec files. So a couple of extra file format supports on the audio side. Okay, and let's just show you a couple of more tricks that we can do. I just want to close a few of these files down. And just open up a couple of files here. Okay, so here we have a game. I just wanted to show a couple of tools that could really help developers. First of all, we have a product as part of Creative Cloud which is called Scout, Adobe Scout. And what that is a profiling tool to help you profile as you debug. So for example, if you've got a game you want to debug and check for memory management, You can do that very easily using the Scout CC. Now to do that, we just need to go into Flash, and under the Publish settings, we can say Enable Detail Telemetry. If you wanted to, you can password protect this as well if you're doing this across domains or anything like that. But certainly enable detail telemetry, and obviously turn that off when you go to publish for your final output. But if I just turn that on for now, Scout's running in the background. Let's just move these side by side. Okay, so as we go into debug the movie, Scout's running in the background, and we can then do some profiling to see if we have any memory issues, etc. Okay, so there's the game running, and as I use my keyboard commands to jump, for example, in the background, Scout, we can do some profiling of what's happening. Okay, so also on the subject of how developers may want to work, I just want to show you a couple of extra controls here. So if I go into Test Movie, we can also test on device as well. So if you have a device plugged in via USB, an Android device for example, you can have multiple devices plugged in and you can debug on device very quickly. So for example, a phone and also a tablet device. If you have iOS Simulator installed as well, you can also launch directly into the iOS Simulator to get some live feedback there as well. So a couple of tools there which are really going to help developers. Okay, so I think that's about it for me in terms of some of the main features for Flash CC. I'd like to say thank you very much for your time this afternoon. If you've got any questions, we're going to go into a chat pod now, so please fire up any questions you have in the chat pod and we'll answer them straight away. Thank you very much.